well and that you had an amazing day. All right, so for today's grade 6 English lesson, we will be focusing on homophones. So before we start our lesson, you are going to go to the A plus students.ca. Once you've gone to A plus students.ca, and then you're going to log in with your username as well as your password. All right, so once you've logged in with your username as well as your password, you are going to the subject of language arts. And then we go to grade 6. All right, so once we have selected the subject of language arts, grade 6, we're going to scroll down up until we get to homophones. Because homophones is the chapter that we are focusing on today. So the chapter is homophones, and the lesson for today is use the correct homophones. All right, so we are doing the chapter of homophones and use the correct homophone. All right, so before we go to the tutorial page on homophones, it says homophones are words that are pronounced the same as another word, but it is different, right, in meaning, spelling, which means that the pronunciation is the same, right, but the meaning is different as well as the spelling. So of course you will get certain homophones where the spelling is the same, however the meaning is different, right? So homophones are words that are pronounced the same, right? So it's pronounced the same as another word, but it differs in meaning or it differs in spelling. And like I said, you will sometimes find a word where the spelling is the same, however, the meaning is different, right? Or the spelling is different, but of course, it sounds the same, right? So if we look at an example, so words that might be spelled the same is, for example, like you have rose, right? So rose and rose, right? So these are words that are spelled the same. However, these two rows, the meanings are different, right? So the first word rose can maybe mean like a beautiful rose that you pick like a flower, right? So either red rose, yellow rose, or what color rose that you are picking in the garden for someone, right? So that can maybe be the one rose. And then the other rose can be like where you rise, rose rise. So rose meaning it is the past of rise, right? So that is two words that are in this case it is spelled the same, but the meanings are different, right? So rose, right? Spelled the same, different meaning. The one rose meaning to rise, right? So the past of rise is to rose, and which is an irregular. And then the other rose, it is a like a flower that you basically pick from the garden. All right, so that is two words that are spelled the same, but the meanings are different, right? Or you might have a word that is again spelled differently, right? But of course, it is pronounced the same. Like, for example, rain and rain, right? So these are two words that are pronounced the same, right? But basically the way it is spelled is different, right? So if we look at the two meanings of, let's say, basically of rain, Then the first meaning of rain is basically droplets of rain where the clouds become heavy, either a winter's day and it starts raining, right? So that can be rain. Um, let's say basically water droplets that is falling from the clouds, from the sky, right? It's like walking in the rain and you're going to be soaking wet. So that is the first rain, this rain, rain, right? And then the other rain, which is reign, right? It is basically like, it's like you're taking up the throne, right? So think of the like your the prince and um castle, um Queen Victoria, right? Think of Queen Victoria, that she basically reigns after so many years, right? Which means that she took the throne, she occupied the throne for so many years, right? Or currently you are occupying the throne, right? But then again, also you get another word, rain, right? So then you have another word that is rain, that is spelled like this, rein. And the word rein, it is basically, this is also rain, and it is a long strap that is used to guide or lead a horse, right? That is also a rein. So as you can see here, we have different words, right? That is pronounced the same, but it is spelled different. And also the meanings are different, right? So remember, we need to keep in mind that homophones are words that are pronounced the same, right? It sounds the same, but the same as another word, but the meanings are different and the spellings are different. All right, so now we're going back to our tutorial page. All right, so once again, it says homophones are words that sound the same but have different spellings and meanings, right? So once again, it sounds the same, but the spelling and the meaning is different, right? Sorry. My friends and I buy lunch at school. So this buy, which is B-U-Y, it means to pay for something, right? Money. So it's like you're buying something, which means that there's an exchange. You need to give money in order to get something. So you're paying for something. That is the word buy. Then we have another word buy, which is then we all eat together by the big tree, right? And this word buy, which is B-Y, it means near, right? So it basically gives us the idea of distance. So this by means near. Then we have another word by, which is we say bye to each other when the bell rings. And bye is short for goodbye, right? It's like a greeting. Like instead of saying goodbye, see you next time, you can just say bye to each other, right? So bye is more of an informal word that is shortened for goodbye. So as you can see, these are the three words bye that sounds the same, but the spellings are different as well as the different meanings, right? So the meanings are also different. All right, so now if we look at okay, let's go up to the first one. Okay, the first question, you need to complete the sentence with the correct homophone, right? A, what is coming undone? A, what is coming undone on the chicken, or the chicken said Grandma Eve made me? So the what is coming undone, right? So if grandma, right, made you something, especially a sweater, right? Then it means that sewing had to take place, right? Because it was made, right? So which means that we must either choose between the word seam or we're going to choose between the word seem, right? So these are not two words that are pronounced, but it differs in spelling and also differs in meaning, right? So we need to basically get the specific, or let's say the right homophone to basically fill in that missing word. All right, so the first word seem. Let's change the color. Oopsie. So the first word seem, right, which is SEAM. So seam, um, it means it is to do with a, let's say, fabric, right? Like when you are sewing, right? When you're sewing a garment, an item like that, right? So that is the word seam, right? And then we have another word. It's like saying, it's like giving an impression, right? So the first word, seam, it refers, sorry, it refers to, let's say, a line where edges meet. So this part came loose of a garment, right? Or of a sweater, right? That is why we need to sew it together, right? And then the other word seam, which is this word seam, it is to do with either a particular impression. Particular impression. It's like somebody would say, it's not what it seems, right? That is not the impression that you are getting. It's not what it seems like, right? And seem over here, verb. So which means that we need to choose the correct word in order to fill in um, by that sentence, right? So we are then going to say a seam, which is the SEAM, right? So a seam is coming undone on the checkered sweater that Grandma Eve made me, right? And that is a line where edges are joined, right? Which means that once that line where edges are joined comes loose, we need to basically sew it again. All right. The next one says, given given that there are more than 100 guests at the wedding, how many do you think Wendy and Carl have received, right? So the word given to us is presents, right? So presents. So then you have another word like is present, right? So there's two different words that are presents, right? And it also sounds the same and it's also spelled the same. But the first word presents, right, are gifts, and especially if they're talking about guests that basically brought or things that they received, and then we would literally just then we would talk about gifts that maybe the couple has received. So the first word would be gifts, and then the other present, right, it is to do with you being there. Are you present, right? Are you available? Are you there, right? You are not absent. So that is another word for present. So presence is basically the word. All right. Okay, so now we're going to the next one. It says, do you plan to, yeah, they're giving us two words that we need to choose, right? Between, so we need to choose one of these two words to fill in the missing word or the correct homophone. Do you plan to pair back those vines, or will you let them wrap around the balcony railing? Right? So we need to choose the the correct word. So pair. So do you like to pair back those vines, or will you let them wrap around the balcony railings, right? So pair, or you get another word pair, which is P-A-R-E, right? So the meanings of these words, so now they're giving us possible meanings of these words, right? So the words pair, and pair, so the other word pair, which is P-A-R-E, these are homophones, right? And if we think of this as homophones, then we need to also think of the meanings of these words, right? Because as much as the pronunciations are the same, but the meanings are different. And that is what homophones are. Homophones are words that are pronounced the same or sounds the same, but it's got different spelling and meanings, right? So the first word pair, right? It is basically related to a fruit. So it is a sweet fruit with yellow, green, or brown skin, right? So a pear, it's a sweet fruit with yellow, green, or brown skin, right? So that is a pear. Then the other pear, this one over here, right? It is to do with a set of two things that go together, right? So it's either a pair of socks, right? Which means that you have two of it because we have 2 feet. Pair of gloves, right? Because we have two hands. Or a set of twins is also a pair. um, and even if you need to work in twos, right, they will say you need to work in pairs, right? So that is the pair. So pair is a set of two things that go together. Then we have another word, pair, right, which is P-A-R-E. And this means to trim or cut off the outer edges of something, right? It is to trim or cut off the outer edges of something. So that is the three different words, right? That's pronounced the same. However, the meanings are different. Even the spellings are different, as we can see, right? So we need to choose the correct word between this pair. Let me try and get a different color. So we need to get the meaning, the proper, like the question, we need to basically fill in the correct homophone by choosing one of these three words. For example, pear, which is P-E-A-R, and we said it's a sweet fruit with yellow, green, or brown skin. Pair, which is P-A-I-R, which is a set of two things that go together, or pair, P-A-R-E, which is to trim or cut the outer edges of something, right? So if we choose the correct homophone, it says, do you plan to pair those vines, or will you let them wrap around the balcony railing? So which means that if we were to choose the correct word, then we would choose this word pair, which is P-A-R-E. And this pair means to trim or cut off the outer edges of something, right? So they are actually asking, are you going to trim or cut off the outer edges, or are you just going to let it wrap around the balcony railings, right? So that is but a few examples, as well as the three um, let's say sentences that we basically did on homophones. And we said homophones are words that sounds the same or pronounce the same, but it differs in spelling. The spellings are different, as well as the meanings are different of these words. All right. So before we go to the test, right, let us go to our whiteboard, right? So if we look at a few possible words, right, of homophones, And remember, we said homophones are words that sounds the same or it's pronounced the same, but it differs in spelling and meaning, right? So if we look at the first word, bear. So we have bear and bear, right? So BARE, which is the trees are already bare, right? Meaning that there's nothing on, right? The leaves have fallen from the trees, right? There's no fruit on the trees. It is bare, right? And we usually find bare trees in winter, right? And then we have a bear, which is BEAR, which is an animal, right? And yet it is I am afraid of bears, right? So it's a big brown animal, which we call a bear. Then we have another word or words, which is bored, right? So these two words, bored, right? All the sounds the same, the spelling as well as the meaning, it's different. So the first word, bored, which is BORED, right? It says, after a while, I got bored and left, right? Meaning that he's not in the mood anymore to want to be at either at his friend's place or at a different place, and he just wants to go home, right? He's not liking the vibe, if we should put it like that, in a grade six term. And then we have board, which is BOARD, right? And it is something that you write on. So I'll write it up on the board, right? So you either have your green board, your black board, your white board, right? And you are basically writing on the board. So it's either you have a board at home or your teacher has a board at school. Then we have B, right? Which is BE, and it says be quiet, right? And the other one is B, which is BEE, which is a bee is buzzing around. And then we have beach, BEACH, right? It's a nice day for going to the beach, right? It's like the ocean where we can relax on a hot summer's day with your bikini on to make sand castles, right, and cool off in the water. So that is the beach, like the ocean. And then we have beach, right, which is BEECH, and it says the great beach or beaches towered up towards the sky, right? It's almost like your not your leaves, but it's more like the bushes of a tree, you know. They are not even branches, but like it's like the bushes or the leaves that covers the branches of the tree, and then they are towered up towards the sky, right? And usually during summer times you will have your beautiful full trees that is green and colorful with different fruits on. Then we have bean, right, which is BEAN. That Tom doesn't like green beans, right? So green beans or beans, it's like a little vegetable, right? And then we have bean. I've been to Japan, meaning that you've been there, you've gone to Japan, you've already experienced how it was there, right? So bean, BEEN. Then the last one we have blue, right? BLUE. And this blue, she likes blue dresses. It is to do with a color, right? So BLUE, it refers to a color, the color blue, right? And usually they associate the color blue for boys, right? But nowadays we don't do that because everybody wears blue, whether girls or boys or literally everybody. And then we have blue, which is BLEW. She blew onto her coffee to cool it down, right? So blue is to blow, right? So it's either she blew, right, to towards a coffee, or onto her coffee to cool it down, or it can say the wind blew, right, or the wind was blowing. So these are homophones, right? These are words that sounds the same. However, the spellings are different as well as the meanings of these words are different, right? So these are homophones. All right. So now we're going back and we're going to do our test. So yes, is we are going to do a test on using the correct homophone. All right, so now we are in our test, right? And it says you need to complete the sentence with the correct homophone. During Les Miserables' tense battle scene, cast members ran up and down the theater center. Is it aisle, aisle, or aisle? So we need to choose the correct one. Is it aisle, which is I apostrophe double L, or aisle, which is AISLE, or is it aisle, which is ISLE? So we basically need to choose the correct word, right? That best in order to correct the homophone, right? So aisle. So the first option, aisle, second option, aisle, or is it the third option, aisle, which is ISLE? We need to choose the correct word. All right, so if we choose, it says during Les Miserables' tense battle scene, cast members ran up and down the theater center aisle. Let's choose the second option, which is AISLE. So if you have that, then well done. We need to complete the sentence with the correct homophone. Ronnie mixed blue and red is a dye, which is DYE, or dye, which is DIE, to create a rich purple hue, which he used to color the white tablecloth. So we need to choose the correct word, dye. Is it DYE that was used to create a rich purple hue, which was used to color the white tablecloth, or dye as in DIE? All right, so dye, DYE is correct, right? Because dye is to change the color, and they usually use dye either in jeans or on your hair, right? So if you have that, then well done. The new trench will lessen the chance that the creek will flood into the street during heavy rains. So the new trench will lessen, which is LESSEN, or LESSON, the chance that the creek will flood into the street during heavy rains. We need to choose one of the best possible homophones, or the correct homophone, to basically complete the sentence. So listen or listen. The new trench will lessen the chance that the creek will flood into the street during heavy rains. We need to choose the correct one. So if we look at the two words, right, which is listen or listen, LESSEN, or LESSON, right? The first word listen, right, means it's a verb meaning to reduce or to make something smaller, right? We are listen, right? And the second one, lesson, it is referring to instructions of learning, right? Which means that your teacher is about to give a lesson on homophones, right? Or the teacher's about to give a lesson on homophones. So if we were to choose the correct word or homophone, right, then we will choose the first option, which is lesson, right? Because lesson is to make it smaller or reducing. Before sunset, Eve and Wayne need to break several long branches into smaller pieces for use in the campfire. So before sunset, Eve and Wayne need to break several long branches into smaller pieces for use in their campfire. So we need to choose between these two words break, right? Is it BRAKE for break or BREAK for break? So we need to choose the correct one. So before sunset, Eve and Wayne need to break several long branches into smaller pieces for their use. So break or break. BRAKE or BREKE, right? So break, the first break, right? It refers to a car, right? And it causes the car to stop or to slow down. And then we have the other break, right? It's where you are either breaking something, right? Cracking something, breaking it into pieces in a half, right? That is to break something. So if we were to choose the correct homophone in this test, then we will say break. They had to break a lot of branches, which is BREAK, break. After they swim, Vivian and Neil always wring out their wet swimsuit and hang them on a rack to dry. So we need to choose between the two words wring. Is it RING or WRING? To wring out the swimsuit. Wring out the swimsuit after, and then we hang them on the dry rack. So the first word, if we were to look at the meaning of these two words, then the first word ring, right? It is an object that you put on your finger, right? You can either have a diamond ring, or ring can be a circular object, right? Or you can have ring, which is a sound like a telephone. And in the second ring, right, which is WRING, it's in a form of like when you're either twisting or you're squeezing out something, right? It's like twisting or squeezing at something in order to extract the water or the liquid. So ring, we need to choose between ring, which is RING, and WRING. So after they swim, Vivian and Neil always wring out their wetsuits and hang them on a rack to dry. So if we were to choose the correct word, right, that best suits or best fits the sentence, then we will say wring, because wring is to twist out or dry out something, right? It's where the liquid gets poured or twisted out of a garment. All right. The highest peak in Ethiopia is Ras Dashen, which has an elevation of almost 15,000 feet. So the highest peak, right? So we need to choose between the two words or the homophones peak in order to find the correct one that fits best within that sentence, right? So peak or peak. And remember, these are words, it sounds the same, different spellings and different meaning, right? So peak, so the first peak, which is P-E-A-K, right? It is mainly related to a higher point or a level, right? So we have reached our peak. It is the highest point, right? Or level of something, right? And then the other word peak, which is P-E-E-K, right? It is related to either seeing something, especially quickly through a small space. It's like I peeked through the hole, right? So peak, we need to choose the correct word peak. P-E-A-K or P-E-A-P-E-E-K. The highest peak in Ethiopia in Ras Dashen, which has an elevation of almost 15,000 feet. So if we were to choose the correct one, we would then choose maybe P-E-A-K, right? Because it's the highest point or level. All right. So now we are going to do an activity, right? Before we do the activity, right, if we think of more common forms of homophones, right, then here are but a few common forms of homophones. And remember, we said homophones are words that sounds the same or it's pronounced the same, but it differs in spelling as well as the meaning is different, right? And a few homophones that we have, which is the more common, is way and way, stairs and stare, right? It's like to look at something when it's like a flight of stairs. Flower and flower, right? So this flower is like plant, right, that you find in a garden. And this flower, it's used for baking. One or one. So one in as in a number, and one is when you win, right? Then we have I and I. So the I is basically on our face, right? And something that we can see through. Like you look with, and then I, which refers to me. And we have eight and eight, which is eight is a number, and eight the past of eat. Then we have sun, year, night, male, right, and dear. So these are more common forms of homophones. All right, so now if we look at the activity in front of us, it says a homophone is a word that is pronounced the same as another word, but it has a different meaning, right? So we are now going to select the correct or the best fit homophone, and then we're going to complete the sentence. And we will basically find the homophones within the bracket, and then we are going to basically just underline the best fit homophone that fits within that sentence. All right, so the first one says, do you know the correct answer? So know as in N-O or know as in K-N-O-W. So do you know the correct answer? So if we were to choose the correct answer, we would say it is no, right? Which is K-N-O-W. K-N-O-W. That is the no that we need to choose. Because the other no means like either yes or no. Go to the shop, go to the stop sign and turn right. So we need to choose one of the correct words. It's either right, which is W-R-I-T-E, or go right, which is R-I-G-H-T. So we're going to choose the word right, which is RIGHT, which is to do with direction. Instead of going left, go right. My mother allowed me to have some friends over. So we need to choose the word allowed. It's either ALLOWED or allowed, which is ALOUD, right? So my mother allowed me to have some friends over. So which means that it will be the first one. The second one is to do with sound. I did not receive any letters in the mail today. So is it MALE or MAIL? The mail, right? So the first mail is to do with either man, however, the second one is in the correct one, male. Those shoes cost me $8. So those shoes cost me $8. So the first word eight is to do with a number, and the second one is eat, right? It's a past of eat, which means that we're going to go with the number eight. So $8. All right, so that is okay. We might as well just complete the others. Number 6 is Cindy Morris won the pageant. So is it either one refers to the number one, or one refers to when you win something, which means that we will choose WON, which refers to her winning, right? Can I have extra pears in my fruit salad, right? So we need to choose between the two words pears. So the first word pears refers to a set of two things, and the second one refers to a sweet fruit. So which means that we will choose the sweet fruit, right? Extra pears within the fruit salad. The sun is really hot today. The sun, right? Which means that if we look at these two words, sun and sun, the first sun refers to your boy child. So which means that we will choose the second one, which is the sun in the sky that shines on a hot day. Where are we going to hide all the gifts, right? It's either the first one or the second one. The second one refers to either something that you are wearing, like either an item of clothing, shoes, jewelry, or anything. So which means that if we are asking a question, we'll choose that word WHERE, where. And then the recipe calls for wheat flour, right? The recipe calls for wheat flour. Is it FLOWER, which is that flour, which is referred to a plant that you pick from a garden, or flour, which we use for baking? So if it's used for baking, then we're choosing the second one, right? Because the recipe, we are going to use flour within the recipe. All right. So those are but that is an example, not an example, but that is an activity um, on homophones where we had to choose the correct homophone within that activity to basically fill in the missing sentences or to complete the sentence. Now we're going to read each of these 8 sentences and we're going to choose the correct homophone from the word bank, right? From the box that makes sense within the sentence. And we're going to write it within the blank spaces. And once we've written it in the blank spaces, and then we are going to reread our completed sentence. All right. The first one says, Emily picked a pretty, is it boulder, ceiling, cereal, or flower for mom, right? Which means that it is flower, but now we need to choose between the two flowers. So the first flower, it refers to something that you pick from a garden. The second flower refers to um, like an ingredient that you use for baking, which means that we are choosing flour, right? Which is FLOWER. which we picked from a garden. A huge what blocked the mountain road? Is it a huge boulder, a huge ceiling, a huge cereal, or a huge flower? Blocked the mountain road. Right? So if we were to choose the correct one, right, then we can say that it is a the correct boulder, right? And if we look at the two words, right, then we're going to choose boulder, boulder. Block the road on the mountain, boulder. A spider made a web high on the ceiling. I ate a bowl of cereal. Not a serial killer, but a cereal, right? The next one is the cake recipe calls for 2 cups of flour. Every week, Dan likes to listen to we have flour, we have cereal, we have ceiling, podcast about football. Is it a ceiling, a cereal, podcast about football? And then if I were, I would not be so nervous when I speak in front of the class. So this word is, oopsie, let's remove this one. So if I were bolder, being bold, if I were bolder, right, I would not be so nervous when I speak in front of the class. And workers were sealing the window so the rain wouldn't get in. So this is sealing. So we have sealing and we have yes. Now every week Dan likes to listen to a serial podcast about football. Right, and this is bolder. So those are homophones, and we basically had to choose the correct homophones within the correct sentences. And remember, we said homophones are words that are pronounced the same or sounds the same, but it differs in spelling and it differs in meaning. So grade 6 is the end of our lesson on homophones. And I really hope that you're going to enjoy your evening further. Goodbye.